Okay, please welcome back Restoration Director Russell Cherrington and two stars of the film, Nightbreed and Simon Bamford.
I forgot to say before, it's kind of gone with the wind with monsters, isn't it? So, I mean, really, the coolest thing is for you to discuss what you thought of it, or anything that was different than the other one, or anything that you want to ask. Any questions? Anybody else want to ask anything? Oh, correct the bar. Yeah. Over there, yeah, correct.
I guess the key thing for me coming from reading the book, and what I loved about the book, was the conversation that Decker always had with the old button face, the mask, and I know that they brought a bit more of that into the film, but it seemed to be more towards the end, whereas from what I remember in the book it was an ongoing conversation. That's what I really liked about it. How did that kind of come into play? Did you want to bring more of that into it, or was that something that...
Well, Decker's an incredibly important character, isn't it? I mean, if you watch it, his dialogue with his mask is really, really important, isn't it? He's telling us about his internal madness, isn't he? He's telling us that he isn't a silent human being, but he's a manipulator. He's kind of like a Dr. Lecter. He's very, there's a split personality at play there. And it was really important for me to bring that back into that film, because you really couldn't see it in the movie. He's just a malevolent kind of killer. He's a slasher in Nightbreed. In this film, it's much more complex. I mean, it's really interesting because, if you've read the novel, or everyone else who's read the novel knows that, he does meet his demise in the novel. But I often say this when we all meet in Q&As, that, whoever stayed dead in a horror movie? Yeah, who stayed dead in a horror movie? If Decker needs to come back in another Nightbreed movie, I'm sure he will. But yeah, he's just a really great character, and I think that he's much better represented in that film. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you got more from it. So, right. Anybody, anything else they'd like to ask? You're quiet.
It's very late at night.
Okay, Fiona, what would you like to ask?
What percentage of the rediscovered footage was actually used?
Well, you can often see, you'll all have noticed that there are some scenes that were in the other version that I've actually favoured the recut version. Did you guys notice that? Yeah, and I did that because there was much more material within those scenes, and there was more actually going on that was character development. But right now, I'd say that it's about 70% work print and 30% theatrical version. So yeah, that's what it stands at the moment, and that's because all that footage was missing from the other movie. So yeah, that was really important. Yeah.
Also, there was some subtle differences in some of the performances and some of those work print versions, which, although subtle, once they are put together, can make a big difference and take the whole scene in a completely different way.
Yeah, great. Anything else? Anybody want to ask? You almost had your hand up. I didn't see you. Sorry.
It's behind me. You said earlier on that you went through the novel again, all the cuts and versions, and 2 scripts. How much of the final work, or while you were working, I should say, rephrase that, how much Clive Barker himself had an input on the final version that we saw tonight?
Sure. Well, I can honestly say that I made this film for me and Clive Barker. I didn't make it for anybody else at the point in time when... This is, the thing I need to explain, this is version 6, so this is the 6th cut of this film. And the first cut, when I took it to Clive and he watched it, his first reaction was very emotive. He cried tears of joy. And then a week later I get an email saying Clive has some notes for you. Now if anybody knows anything about Clive Barker, we know that he's a very intellectual, very developed human being. I was kind of scared of getting, the only time I've ever been scared of anything, Clive's going to give you some notes. And he gave me his notes, and there were 4 bullet points. And he wanted, at the beginning, you know, it goes boom, boom when he's first introduced, yeah? It said that 3 times, and we cut one of those out. He wanted to move a scene around in Boone's hallucination, so he wanted to move something 2 places. There's, you know, when Boone's dead and Laurie goes to visit him, he wanted to put the echo of Johnny B. Good in there. And then at the end, he wanted me to heighten the music on the Gone with the Wind sequence. So there were 4 things. Now, to say that this film is almost 2 hours, 20 minutes long, and Clive Barker asked you to do 4 things, I must have done okay. Yeah, and no, yeah, but Clive has really used social media and anything else to promote that this is the version of the film that he wants to see. And the greatest honour of my time in doing this is to share a credit with him that he gave to me because his belief. And he now says that the film belongs to me and Mark Miller as much as it belongs to him, which is very, very kind of him. So, but he's a wonderful human being, and he sends his love to you guys. Every time I do one of these, I tell him the questions afterwards. I tell him about the experience, the audience, etc. And he can't believe that Nightbreed has a second life 22 years later. Some of you guys, who's seen this for the first time tonight? Never seen it before. That's amazing. So, and when these guys, I'm going to let them talk because they always complain that I talk all the time. Right, so when they made this film, it never got as much attention first time round as it is now. So, Nick, you tell everybody.
Oh, what I thought of the first.
Well, you know, the journey from there to now.
Yeah, briefly. It's extraordinary because Simon's got another story as well about what he first thought of it. When I first read Cabal, then I read the script for Nightbreed, I just read this wonderfully intense, dark, European folk tale where the monsters are more than just the good guys. It's not about being good and bad as much as just, you know, this is the way things are, this is what happens in real life. And this has to be a place for the monsters to go, and that's me. And a wonderful love story between Boone and Laurie. And that's not the movie that was published. I just remember seeing this thing going, bastards, what have you done? Because I've heard, and I've got to in comments outside, I've heard what had been going on, I had got rumours back and stuff. So for me, when Russell showed this to me in his front room,
in Cumbria.
In Cumbria, hi.
Cumbria,
Went up to Carlisle and he sort of sat me down and he said, you know, this is it. He went to make dinner and I watched this movie and going, this is amazing. You know, this is so much closer to what I remember it being and what I wanted it to be. So I just feel very honoured and lucky that, you know, to be part of it and to be able to come along and support it as well. Because it's fun meeting you guys and listening to people. Because Simon and I have been doing appearances for about the last 10, 15 years in the States and so the Hellraiser. There's always been some interest in Nightbreed. We've always had some night photographs out for people. There's always been some interest with it, you know. But now that we're getting much bigger, that's terribly gratifying. Very grateful. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Well, was used to talk about this as being his Holocaust movie because that's basically what it is. It's persecution of minorities. Seeing Clive at the end of the process of filming it after he'd been through the hell of the studio system in the States where they were telling him how to edit his film and trying to say to him, they were saying, you're Clive Barker, you just made Hellraiser, how can you be doing something where the monsters are good? And he was saying, yeah, but that's the whole point of the story, is that the monsters are good, but the execs over there can get their heads around it. And when you saw him at the end of that process, he was like a destroyed man at that point. So it was great for us. We did a screening of a film called Fright Fest at Leicester Square at the Empire, and it was across the road from the Odeon, Leicester Square, where we first had our screening of Nightbreed in 1990. 1990. So it was nice that finally a version so much closer to the way it was supposed to have been was finally seen in Leicester Square again. Is there any other questions? Yeah.
Thank you. Just wondering if any consideration be given to, and it does seem a bit strange, but to actually degrading the Morgan Creek footage to sort of ease the actual viewing sort of process.
It's a microphone hog.
You just because you're at the start. What we plan to do is, I really want to get the original footage back and work with Bob Invision, the cinematography, and re-digitise it all to 1080p and create a Blu-ray version with a proper sound mix, because that's what's lacking right now. All the work I've done, you know, the hundreds and hundreds of hours, have led to this, which is it's fantastic for me. It is. But I don't want to degrade the other footage down to match it. But what the worst thing that could possibly happen is that I've talked to the BFI and we will take back, if anyone knows about this process, the original work prints, and it brings up the quality.
He's been watching the Great British Bake Off.
So I'm going to bake the tape, right? And then by baking the tape,
180 degrees.
and you bake it for 6 days, and then you can only play the tape once into a system called a Da Vinci, and it brings the quality up to about DVD standard. If anyone's seen the work print of Alien 3, that was baked in the same way, and it was broke, you know.
So,
Bamford?
if anybody has any copies of Debbie Does Dallas at home on VHS, you can just put it in the oven, 180 degrees for 3 weeks, did you say? And it should bring it for 6 days.
So we ultimately, the worst it will look is to the quality of the Morgan Creek Nightbreed. Like that, you know. But ultimately, I want to take it to Blu-ray standard. And the goal would be to release Nightbreed as released in 1990 on Blu-ray, and the Cabal Cut on Blu-ray, and a 2-hour documentary which would tell you the story from Clive writing it to the day of release on Blu-ray. So you could find out, and footage from screenings like this of you guys asking questions and what's gone on and how we've taken it from a forgotten film to a film that's now got a second life, which is wonderful. So, well, thank you for your question. That helps us explain quite a lot. Anybody else? Over there.
There was one thing. I know some of the footage is, well, like the night scenes, the darker bits. It's practically impossible to tell what's going on in a couple of spots.
Sure.
So this might seem like a bit of a weird question, but was there any of the work print footage that you thought you wanted to use, but you thought was unusable?
Well, I agree that, you know, towards the end, the Gone with the Wind sequence where she does that.
And a couple of bits.
Yeah, a couple of bits. Yeah.
Only a few. But
yeah, sure. There are a few, and I hope I covered that in my introduction. The porno quality, as I call it. Yeah. I just really couldn't afford, you know, at the ending I couldn't afford to leave it out and the other bits, but ultimately. This is about story. I mean, all films are about story, aren't they? Really. All the good films have great stories, don't they? All the crap films have no stories. It's no surprise that Transformers shit. Right? 3 pieces of shit that could have been edited down into one movie because there's no fucking story. Right? And the only story in them are the robots. Like, take the human beings out and keep the robots, and we've got 90 minutes of something worth watching, haven't we? That we might have watched when we were children. But my goal, I guess, was to tell the story first of all above the quality. And then, obviously, the quality then makes me realise how much I want to get hold of it. And just every screening takes us closer and closer and closer to that. And Morgan Creek wants to do it now, and it's our hope that this time next year that the Blu-rays will be released. So, you know, we're only going to really do screenings till about March, and then work on that completely.
But there was nothing on those VHS tapes that you thought, oh, I can't use this.
Oh, well, it kind of looks, a couple of those times I think that, but Paul Gordon, who did the colour correction and worked it up, it looked 10 times worse when it was on the tape.
Nobody's saying, was there anything you just couldn't use?
No, all the other things, I edited, this is version 6, so I've edited some things out, but they were things like that you find in editing that I heard from you guys that, you know, I don't need to see 25 guns cock when they go to kill the Nightbreed. It was things like that got edited out, but no, everything's in. I mean, you know, the thing, the Ray Harryhausen creature that goes across with that doesn't look fantastic in this version, but I didn't want to leave it out because I'd always wanted to see it, you know. So my goal really was in the early versions, before we do the final one, is to make you guys see everything that's possible out of the footage, and go back to the gentleman over there, as much Decker as is possible that tells that story. Now, I more edited out things from the reshoots that I didn't think worked, but you know, the one bit of the reshoots that I thought was fantastic was the guy in the cabin with all the stuffed dead animals. And you know, he's a really famous 50s horror actor. And, you know, he kind of had to stay in for me, even though he was a reshoot. And we used other bits. But, Nick, you know, you think there is a sequence that between Kinski and Pelican.
Yes.
Tell the guys a little bit about that, because we haven't found this yet, so I really want to find this.
And I keep on you to, so that there is one scene just as the humans, or, you know, the townspeople are arriving to destroy Midian, which kind of explains what, you know, it's Kinski doing that thing he does with Pelican, trying to calm Pelican down, trying to hold him back, trying, you know, not to do what Pelican does. So that it's only half a dozen lines, something like that. But I remember it was filmed. Ollie Parker was filmed one day, I was filmed the following day. It must exist somewhere, because there is a moment where you see, it was a 16-hour day, I remember that much. I remember having to do the lines to somebody who wasn't there. And in the original movie, you see Kinski go, and that's all that remains.
Right.
But that's 16. So the footage is there somewhere.
Yeah, and we have found a new piece of footage, which is to do with Cabal, and it's a complete nude sequence that never appeared in the movie, and that came to light via meeting one of the special effects people, and he had it on tape, and that came to us. So that obviously there are other things out there, and you know, like if you watch the title sequence, it's fantastic, but there's a scene where Pelican's jaw comes down. Well, that exists nowhere else at the moment other than in the title sequence, so you know, I'd really like to find that. So, as you know, but I don't want it to be any longer, really. I mean, it's quite a thing to sustain this amount of time, 2 hours, 20 minutes. So, but we'll see. I mean, it's still got a journey to go on. I think Martin Scorsese said it best when he made Raging Bull, that you only really give up on a film the day you've got to give it over for it to be released. So that will happen with Nightbreed. The day we can release it will be the last day that we can work on it. I'm not Ridley Scott. Not yet. Okay, anything anyone else wants to ask? Over there.
You've talked about Clive's trials and tribulations with Fox and Morgan Creek, and I'm aware as well 5 years later he had the same problems with United Artists doing Lord of Illusions. Have these things put Clive off directing for good? Is there any chance he'll climb back into that chair? Or
Clive Barker, as a director, is a genius that made 3 feature films, in my opinion. But I mean, are you all Clive Barker fans, everybody? Yeah? Okay, cool. Well, Clive, you all know that he's been a little bit ill, don't you? Yeah, you know that he's been sick in the last year. Well, he's been quite unwell, and that's the only thing that has stopped Clive from getting back into the director's chair. He's a complete creative individual. You know, he literally now he's still writing. For the next 5 hours, he'll still be writing. He'll go to sleep. He'll sleep 6 or 7 hours. He'll be writing. He draws all day long. He creates more things. Clive has more ideas than anybody else has in a lifetime in a week. Seriously, you know, and I find in the trash notebooks with stories in them, and I rescue them. When I go there, I have them at home. I have unpublished stories everywhere, and drawings and things like that. But to say that he's going to direct another film might not be, you know, the way forward. He's 60 years old. He was put on this earth to create. I would rather he wrote and drew and created worlds that could be used in whatever way, and finish the work that's out there, finish the art, finish Galilee, finish Abarat, and write all the stories that are inhabiting his head. So that's what I'd like Clive to do. I'd like to make another Nightbreed movie. I'd like to tell the story of the Nightbreed 20 years later. I'd like to tell the story of a new Midian. I'd like to tell you the story of Baphomet being brought back together, all the Nightbreed who are dispersed across the world coming back together to do that. We'd love to do that. There's an idea for a TV series. There's a Cabal kind of anniversary book being talked about. You know, the old Nightbreed has lots of things. Lord of Illusions is a different kettle of fish. But, you know, that's a whole different movie. It has its director's cut. It's lucky to have its director's cut. This never had it until now. Simon would like the microphone. So I'm going to give it to him. But yeah, my long convoluted answer is that I don't think Clive will direct again, but I will. There's a guy called Mark Miller going to make a film next year called The Sickness. I want to make one called Jacqueline S. We'd like to do another one of these. And there's whispers of other things that I get killed if I told you about. But there's lots of Clive Barker things going to happen in the future. And Simon's going to tell you about something now. We're going to have the breakfast dressed as a character.
That says, all of that says, Clive came over to London a couple of years ago when Anthony de Blasey was about to start directing Dread. That's Dread, the Book of Blood film, not Dread, the one that's just opened. Afterwards we all went to the pub and Clive said, do you know what, when I finish Abarat 5, the book Abarat 5, I'm going to direct a film. So we went, wow, that's fantastic, what's it going to be? And we all came up with ideas, we will, bloody, bloody, blah. He went, no. He said, I'm not going to tell you. So, no wiser, but yes, I mean, he did say, while I was there, that yes, he wanted to direct another film, but it will be subject to his health. But that said, again, his health, according to him, is on the increase, so that's good.
Yeah, sure. There was story once that he was going to direct a film up in the three houses and all these things, but I just, it takes so much out of a human being to direct something, you know, it really does, and I just really want Clive to write all those books and to support him doing that, and you know, I think he's made 3 really interesting films, which I think now you're closer to seeing what Clive Barker intended for Nightbreed, and I hope you all enjoyed what you saw. I hope you don't think it's a travesty. But me, Nick and Simon are all going to go upstairs, and we have a little table, and you can come and say hello to us, and you can tell us what you thought, because each and every one of you, it really matters what you thought to us. So
especially because it is a work in progress, and it's your input that actually changes the work at the end of the day, isn't it? So that's why it's really important that you come and talk to us and tell us what you liked and what you didn't like, and where you think it should go or shouldn't go.
And we'd like to thank Rob for being such a wonderful, supportive host by inviting us to come here today and looking after us. So thank you, Rob. Thank you.
I'd like to thank you as well. I think it's an extraordinary piece of work. I think, as you say, it is a work in progress, and in a year's time, we'll hopefully see it kind of come to fruition in full. And to have two Cenobites on the stage is also awesome. So yeah, basically, just to wrap up, thank you all for coming tonight. The guys are going to be around, as Russell said, on the table, and we also, after that, we're going to give a little bit of time, but we've also got the wonderful Friends of Batman, who are a local band who are playing in the bar tonight. So stick around, have a drink, and if not, we'll see you tomorrow at 10:30 AM for the ridiculous wonder that is Manborg. Thank you very much.